Hello, welcome to Mission 919, my channel devoted to information and narratives of African achievement, well-being, and prosperity. And today we're going to talk about the 75th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress held in October of 1945, just literally 2.5 months after the end of World War II with the surrender of Japan in August of 1945, and the Fifth Pan-African Congress is, I think, justifiably regarded as the most important of the Pan-African Congresses, although the first one is obviously very important as well. That was held in 1919, but the Fifth Pan-African Congress, held in Manchester, United Kingdom, was notable for many reasons. First of all, because of its timing. Second of all, because it was the first one that had many African delegates. The previous ones had delegates more from the United States and from the Caribbean, and also the people who attended it. Several of them ended up becoming leaders of newly independent states. For example, Kwame Nkrumah was there, Hastings Banda, who's president of Malawi, Jomo Kenyatta, president of Kenya, and of course Amy Ashwood Garvey was there. DuBois was still there, George Padmore, Caribbean intellectual, was there. And this was the first one that really explicitly called for the independence of African states. The other ones, in some cases, were asking for development toward greater autonomy, amelioration of conditions, but not necessarily explicitly calling for independence. So the Pan-African Congress, it held in 1945. Well, then the first African states become independent in the 1950s, Sudan in 1956, which is often forgotten, and then Ghana in 1957, March 6, 1957. And then subsequently after that, a whole slew of countries beginning in 1958 and then 60 and on through the 60s, et cetera, et cetera. And between 1945 and 1994, which I think a lot of people consider to be sort of the ending of the direct colonial phase of African history, is only 49 years. So actually the achievement of formal independence was quite rapid, historically speaking, quite impressive, actually. The other thing I would say is that the Pan-African movement, though obviously it's not something that is adhered to by everyone at all times, certainly not. Still, I think if you look around the world, I think you can make a very clear-cut argument that Africa is actually the most united of all the continents, regardless of its other problems. Certainly Latin America is not united. Several countries sort of supporting the overthrow of governments like in Venezuela and Bolivia. So there's really no unified position there. In Asia, there's no unity. There's a lot of antagonism, say, between Korea and Japan, China and Japan. There's the Taiwan issue. Vietnamese don't trust the Chinese. So even though there's a lot of economic development, political unity is not on the horizon. Europe, this is the European Union, but if we look at what happened in the Balkans, that wasn't an example of unity. Countries splitting up, like Czech Republic into Czechia and Slovakia. And then there's a lot of resentment between the various countries, people viewing Germany as overbearing and arrogant, and so on and so forth. The British deciding to leave the European Union. So not a lot of unity there either. Whereas in Africa, at least at the level of rhetoric, and I would say even beyond rhetoric, they just passed the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, many people would say it's mostly aspirational at this point, but you start signing treaties and changing regulations and so on and so forth, then all of a sudden things start to materialize. And so I hope that's the case. As far as interstate wars, there really aren't any. Hopefully the conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia does not develop into a war. That would be disastrous, of course. So there's a lot of internal conflicts, but there's not a lot of necessarily conflicts between states, which of course I think is a positive thing. And I just think the overall ethos among Africans toward Pan-Africanism is very strong, regardless of all of the limitations and contradictions. So I think commemorating or remembering this Congress in 1945 and measuring how far we've come since then is important. It's very unproductive to compare Africa to other continents, because the history of the continent over the last few centuries is quite unique. And so, when one can point to all kinds of problems and shortcomings and so forth in terms of government and leadership between 1945 and now, I think if you look at the situation on the African continent in 1945 and compare it to now, the improvements are nothing short of astonishing. And the leadership, if you consider, not only like Kwame Nkrumah, Amilcar Cabral, Julius Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, and the ANC in general, in terms of defeating apartheid. I think that is, I don't think any other continent can match that level of leadership over that period of time. Which is not to say that, of course, there aren't despots and dictators and so forth and so on, but the people from outside the continent like to focus on those things for their own specific agenda, and we should focus on the things that are relevant for the advancement and prosperity and well-being of the African continent. So, so in the name of the ancestors, in the name of the unborn, who are the same, Ashe, 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 and we'll see you next time.